stay with me for a few minutes. Okay, so that same circle that I showed in the top, I'm going to show you in a minute here, this circle, which is where the Earth's axis is going and pointing up in the sky. And I'm showing this Arundhati and Vasishtha exaggerated so that we can see it, a relative position. Okay, this is a bit technical geometry part for next 2-3 minutes. Okay, now if you don't follow this, if you don't get it, no worries. If you go to YouTube, just type Arundhati Vasishtha, it takes you through 10-minute video, and with the music, of course, in the background. Okay, you can watch that. Okay, so what I'm doing is, I'm drawing a line that goes through Arundhati Vasishtha and also cuts that circle. It so happens it cuts the circle twice. Okay? Those 2 points, you can actually find out when the Earth's axis was pointing at that point. Here it was pointing in 4508 BC, here it was pointing in 11091 BC, where it cut. Okay? And that makes it many, many interesting things. What it does is, it takes this whole Arundhati Vasishtha, how they walk with respect to each other, into 3 different phenomena, 3 different possibilities. Okay? What is the first possibility? That Vasishtha is ahead of Arundhati. Second possibility is they both walk together. And the third possibility is Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishtha. Okay? Okay, so let's look at the scenario 1. Which is what is happening in our time. At night, you go with a telescope or even a binocular, good binocular at night. Okay, you can see it at night right now. And Vasishtha, if you look at those, what you will find, see, the motion is anti-clockwise. So that is Vasishtha, that is Arundhati. Would you agree that if they are going anti-clockwise like this, Vasishtha would appear walking ahead and Arundhati behind? That is the scenario today. That is a scenario 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. No change. Their variation might go up and down, but always Vasishtha. What does that tell you with respect to Mahabharata? Mahabharata says Arundhati is walking ahead. So if that is true, then Mahabharata war did not happen in last 6,000 years. That's what it means, right? Okay, and this is a astronomy simulation, going from right to the left, anti-clockwise. Vasishtha has already crossed the meridian line. Think of the 100 meters, Yeah, Vasishtha has already gone ahead and Arundhati is behind. Okay, let's look at the next scenario. Where the points are exactly on that same line. How would it look? In year 4508 BCE and also 11,091 BCE. It's like the 2 arms, of the clock. They're exactly like this. They're together. No one ahead, no one behind. Okay? Gender equality. Yeah? And that's what you will see for 4500 BC or 11,091 BC if you do the simulation. They cross the meridian exactly at the same time. Is everyone with me? Now let's look at the third scenario. Okay, so now I just pointing one at 5561 BCE, but actually it's a range, like that 6500 years period from 11,091 to 4500 BC. Anytime, what you're going to see just for 5561 BCE. Now again, moment is anti-clockwise like this. I drew an arm from center point to Arundhati and then Vasishtha. Not much difference, but do you see it? If it goes like this, Arundhati is going to go ahead, Vasishtha behind. And if you look at the simulation, you can see that. Arundhati crosses the meridian, Vasishtha crosses after that. That's the objective testing, what we call objective testing in science. Now that's not enough. As I said, many people do a good job. But now to draw the inference, therefore, for example, if somebody draws the inference, therefore it tells us that Mahabharata war never happened. What will you do, right? Something like that. So based on this, if you draw the inference, what it's telling us that Mahabharata war happened sometime between those 2 dates. Everyone follows? Why? Because Arundhati has to walk ahead of Vasishtha. And something interesting. Now look at the 130 plus different claims that I talked about. 96% plus of those 130 claims fall after 4508 BCE. So that one observation instantaneously falsifies everything else. Those 96% of the claims. Okay? All right. And in the in the language of language of the Shad Darshanas, or Nyaya Siddhanta, or which are Yoga Siddhanta you want to talk. What it says that the Shabda Praman, okay, the verbal evidence, Padadnyan, is being validated by a Pratyaksha Praman. We could visually see that that is the case. Okay. Alright, so what I just showed you, this is for one observation. In case of Mahabharata, we would have to do it 300 times plus. In case of Ramayana, I did the exactly same thing. Ramayana has close to 600, 575 plus specific astronomy and associated observations in the Ramayana, that 24,000 verses, 1/5 of the size of Mahabharata, but has 600 observations. It just so happens like that. And they all can lead to a specific date, just like the Mahabharata. Okay? So Mahabharata 5561 BCE, that's my work. Then the other book, the historic Ram, that's 12,209 BCE. 600 observations. So, just like I talked about, we need those many lectures if you have to go through it. So the best way is that you take a book, or don't have to go to the book right away. I have written some 600, I don't know what the number, 500 plus blog articles. You can read it that. There are 100 plus YouTube videos. 100 plus YouTube videos, sometimes 3 minutes, because some people say, oh, I cannot focus more than 3 minutes. Okay, so 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, Okay, now something else that I did, this is beginning in 2016. So suddenly, somebody says, so Nilesh, that's fine. What about Rigveda? That happens, right? And Rigveda itself does have astronomy descriptions, but it doesn't have any astronomy evidence that allows you to do like that vernier caliper. Okay? It's a repetitive phenomenon. That's what you typically see. It doesn't have anything specific. So I had to go beyond astronomy, just purely for Rigveda. But interestingly, once you have Mahabharata, Ramayana, that really helped me. Why? Because Mahabharata mentions Rigveda, Mahabharata mentions Vedas, Ramayana mentions Vedas. So definitely I know they were before, as a directional, as a first hypothesis. Right? So when I did that, I could come up with, now I'll not go into the details, but Rigveda has 10 mandalas. Okay? And some of us think they all were done from the one time. They are not. Okay, there are different descriptions that tell us, and that's not a subject, so I'm going to skip it. But if those of you are interested, if you go to YouTube, type my name and type something like 17,000 plus years of civilization or something, you will get a talk, 90 minutes of fun. Okay, and you will see some of the very specific evidence that I discussed for Rigveda. What we know from the evidence that we have is that the Rigveda that we have today, sort of its composition ended, the changes to it ended around 6th millennium BC, which is same time as Mahabharata. But if you go backwards, we know that definitely some portions of Rigveda are more than 22,000 years old, or rather 22,000 BC, so more than 24,000 years old. And if you get into question answer, I'm able to address a little bit. Okay. All right, and so post Mahabharata also we have lots of evidence. And just one more point, this came from actually a British professor. Okay, so he said, what? In this context, when I gave a talk at Oxford, he got very excited. He said, in this context, you should put the European Enlightenment. Okay, and so, I have heard the word, but I don't know exactly what the timing was. So he gave me the timing. He said, okay, this is one estimated to be like 17th, 18th century. So I just put it there. He loved it. He says, okay, now I'm happy. Okay, so that's on the Mahabharata. Want to quickly go about few insights on Bhagavad Gita, and then we will get into question answer session. Okay. I recently gave a talk. Now I gave the talk in February. It's on Bhagavad Gita. I'm trying to think the title of it. Anyone has seen? And how many of you have seen my YouTube talks before? Okay, I got the right audience. Not many. Okay, 100 plus YouTube talk, free. Okay. Just have fun. I'm trying to think the name. Anyone remembers that Bhagavad Gita talk that came recently? Anyway, just type my name. So I have covered some point of view from Bhagavad Gita. Now, why I'm saying is Bhagavad Gita is such a huge subject. If you think of it, okay, you can talk on and on. So these are just few salient features that I want to do. And what I did is whatever I covered in that talk, I deliberately did not include it here. So you understand why, okay? Alright. So, what was that? What did I say there? Okay, Shad Darshanas are complementary. The 6 different philosophies that we hear, okay, they are complementary. Now you see some contradictions there. Contradiction in the sense of certain say Sankhya will say, okay, we accept only these 3. We don't accept others. But try to understand why. Okay, they're not fighting. They're saying in certain cases that is of no use. Like if you are making a masala dosa, lot of theorizing has no value. You know, just understand the ingredients and learn from an expert. That's the easy way to quickly cook a good masala dosa, right? Or tandoori chicken or whatever that is, right? So, how does that work? Now, forgive me if you cannot read Nagari script, you know, some words. So, this is from a Patanjali Yoga Sutra. I try to put that as a framework, and I have used this for my all 3 books that Srikanji mentioned. Okay, and I'll mention about the 4th book. So, from this scientific acumen or Vijnan Buddhi, take one axis of evidence, okay, and the other axis of testability, like objective testability. If you do this, what happens? The evidence will go from some selective arbitrary evidence to all relevant evidence. If you go from testability, it's very nice, discrete, either it is objectively testable or it is not objectively testable. And when you do that, it splits into these 4 quadrants, okay, and I'm just using some words. And those I'll explain. So that first word there, first quadrant at the top there, Shraddha, what it says is, somebody says, you know what, I'm not into objective testing. I have this Shraddha, reverence for this book. Okay, I'm going to read it, I'm going to memorize it, I'm going to make copies, I'm going to teach people about it. Perfectly fine, actually very virtuous exercise. In fact, somebody did it, that's why we are having this talk here. If it was gone, I couldn't do anything, I'll continue with G, selling gas turbines and aircraft engines and whatnot, right? Okay, so that's very useful. The second one is where we say, look at all the evidence, but see, how can I objectively test it? I fall into that category, that is my assertion, okay? So that second one is like where you can claim something, true or false, and leave it for others to critique brutally. Okay, so tell me how I am wrong. And the last quadrant there, sorry, the second last, that's the bottom left side. This is where, you know, you have lots of people. Let me see if I have numbers, okay? I'm just going to fill this to see what I have put there, okay? So let me complete this. How many of you have heard the binary logic? Yes, no, pass, fail, good, bad, right, wrong. How many of you have heard Chatushkoti logic? Which is what I have shown here. True or false, but it can be true and false. It could be neither true nor false. For example, Jainism, you know, has written a lot about the Chatushkoti logic, and it's there in other grantha also. Okay. So, for example, when somebody you take that with a reverence, you're not even using your discrimination. You're saying, okay, to me this is important. Nothing matters. Okay. What does more than likely is going to be the scenario? Some things will be true, some things will be not true, but it doesn't matter to that person, and that's perfectly fine. When you get here, you want to find everything is objectively testable. In that sense, it has to be true at least. Okay. Then the last one, that infinite, where I showed infinity. This is, you know, these are the naysayers. Okay, I call those tamasic skeptics. Naysayers, lazy people. Okay. Now, many of them involve, like, who send me emails saying, Nilesh ji, now why don't you work on this? Okay. Right? Well, if they have that great idea, more than likely they feel passionate about it, they should jump and start doing something about it. What they don't know is, it may take 20 years and still there may not be an answer. Okay? And then, so that's what, you know, you created a doubt. Again, I'm talking about the Bhagavad Gita insight, samshay. Okay? But samshay can be understood in 2 different ways. For example, samshay of the buddhi or samshay of the intellect, doubt of the intellect or doubt of the mind. Bhagavad Gita says, samshayatma vinashyati. Okay? That person is destroyed. Anyone who gets into doubt. That is a doubt of the mind. ऐसा कैसा हो सकता है? How can this happen? It stops there. The doubt of the intellect says, why would Vyas might have said this? Let me find out. Let me try. You see the difference? Okay. Now, when people say, Pushpak Viman of the Ramayana, where is it? And therefore Ramayana cannot have happened, like where is the aeroplane, you know, something like this. Sometimes, what happens? We do that in science. Something that we cannot solve, what do? We put it on the side, try to see what we can solve. Or even if we cannot solve, how can we use it? Take quantum mechanics. There are 14, 17 different theories. Okay? But is it successful? I mean, in terms of its usage? Yeah, absolutely. So let's focus on how we can use it. Okay? Alright. And the last one, what happens is, now this is the most dangerous area, by the way, and most of the claims are there. Because they select, they already have a date in their mind. Okay, and they say, what evidence I can use to support my claim? Okay, and they objectively test it. It says, hey, look, I showed you. The moon should be near Kritika here. The moon is near Kritika. A full moon is near Kritika. You know what? You can show that for any year. Full moon near Kritika Nakshatra is going to happen every year. That's not sufficient. It's necessary, but not a sufficient condition. Okay? Alright, so here we can have a lot of like a false notion that I have done something, I have objectively tested it, but it is not correct because it is selective evidence. So I said that there can be some evidence that may not match with your date. Is there any evidence for my date? Of course there is. Out of those 300, there are close to 5, 6, maybe up to 8